Welcome back yet again, ladies and gentlemen, to another fantastic day of the UPL. I, yet again, am always your host for the Idiot Ravishing, the most ravishing man on the internet. Joined here by my side yet again by, actually, my main man, Destrux, your beard looking kind of nice today, fam. What you doing with all that?
I wore a black shirt, so the camera's actually contrasting the colors a little bit better. So, you know, we're fine now. We're fine. We're looking good here.
I like what I'm seeing so far, but let me also go ahead and introduce another much more handsome looking gentleman, head coach Supernova to Coach Kosa.
Nice.
I mean, like you tell
on,
me
you
I'm
can't be
lying,
doing death rocks like that,
bro. You're the only one on the desk with hair, so you automatically win. Like just immediately.
It's just luck. It's just RNG of the genetics, man. I'm sorry.
Lost the lottery on that one.
Yeah. Unfortunately, so maybe RNG will favor me next time. We'll see what happens in my next life, but. Right now, in its current life, we have some fantastic games in front of us. The battle of St. Louis is upon the horizon. That being Maryville versus St. Louis versus SLU. That's right. Talk to me a little bit about the history between these teams.
So this is an interesting matchup to me because we just had HughFest go off this month as well. And at HughFest, neither of these teams actually got a chance to play each other. They're both on different sides of the bracket when the bracket did play out. Both of them falling to the University of St. Thomas, Maryville falling in the semis as well as SLU falling in the finals. And it's a damn shame because I want to see these two teams go off against each other. That's why I'm happy about this matchup here today. And one of those reasons is because there's a lot of experienced players, lots of journeymen when it comes to both of these rosters. Strompes, Andy Bendy, those are the names that pop out when I look at SLU. When I go look at Maryville, you know, you look at Shady. I was going to say Odd Orange, but I believe it's Kind who's playing today, but that's another experienced player as well. So yeah, a lot of experience on both of these rosters.
Yeah, most definitely. Yeah, exactly like you were saying. Yeah, just like one, like you mentioned, just journeyman who's seen through and fro as to what amateur can bring, and definitely have definitely been able to take the share of the pie. And like with the veteran voices that they bring to the table too, I find like they're really able to tackle any overall situation too. But Koso, I did want to get your overall take on the players that you're seeing today, and perhaps anything you've experienced with them.
Yeah, I've worked with a lot of these players on the Rift today. I think there's a lot of talent on both teams. There's very distinct carry players on each team that we can talk about. We have Spyrex on MU that I think is going to be a really powerful tool that MU can use if they draft around them. They can carry games from that top side of the map. For SLU, I believe they have Cozy and Strompus, who I've worked with personally. So these players are also really carry orientated, and they need to play towards Cozy and Stromp in order to carry the game. I believe both teams have a different win condition. I think for bot lane, for SLU, it's a bit stronger in terms of like individual prowess. I think Azog is going to be by himself because Shady's playstyle is through roams, so he's going to be roaming like all game, which is going to help Spyrex if they play towards him. So I think support needs to synergize with the jungle and attack mid together for MU to win. And I think the same needs to happen top, but the difference is Cozy's more of a flip player. So if things go well individually for him on the top side, SLU is going to have a much easier game. Looking forward to that.
I mean, I personally see that as well, because exactly like you were seeing, considering today we actually do have Evan RL here inside the roster playing today for Maryville. So I find that kind of just changes the plan just a little bit too. Like considering I know Evan to be a little bit more weak side in terms of ADC. So that already means we might get a little bit more tough heavy in terms of the compositions. But Esrux, what are you thinking?
Right now, what's going through my mind, even though SLU did have the higher placing when it came to HuFest, I'm still kind of favoring Maryville when it comes to the grand scheme of things. More specifically, because I look at the jungle role and I look at Zaga, the jungler of SLU. He's more of a fresh face when it comes to the scene. He's definitely shown he's very green. He doesn't have that much champion diversity. He's playing mostly on the meta with the Xin Zhaos and Trundles. It's pretty much exclusively the only champions he's been playing, but he's in the jungle role, which is going to need a lot of agency when you're going against a squad like Maryville University.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I think the whole of SLU's program is just brand new, right? So these players don't have that much time playing together. MU has much more agency in that field. So if they both draft traditional and they're both drafting towards like team fighting and stuff, I think MU is going to have an edge. So we definitely need to be looking at like more of the micro stuff for SLU to come ahead.
Actually, Coach, sticking with you on that too. So you mentioned looking at taking a real magnifying lens towards the plays that we could see what SLU is making. Talk to me a bit more about that.
Again, like I said, Cozy's more of a flip player, so he's gonna want to challenge. I think it's Chippy's right top lane, so he's gonna want to challenge him really early on. He's gonna be on champions like Camille, Jace, Akali if you can get that. Strompus, same thing. He's gonna want his Lucian. If his Rise is open, he's definitely gonna take that away. And these guys, again, if they play well individually and they get their champions, the game should be pretty easy for SLU. Again, I'm favoring SLU, no bias, not just because of Cozy and Strong. They do have a more rookie jungle side, and they're inexperienced with their mid-top. So that's going to be interesting to see how they play. But again, if he picks meta, if he sticks to like Trundles and Zhao, it should be fine for them.
I mean, honestly, yeah, like you were mentioning, like just the overall jungle diversity. In my opinion, I'll be honest, well, it's like jungle meta right now has been kind of boring. It's like unless you're playing Lee Sin, then like you're playing Trundle, you're playing this. Like it's like I miss the days of early time junglers. Like I don't even see Olaf anymore. I want to see that.
Yeah.
Like I would even take Udyr back at this point. Like not really. Udyr was a horrible time, but like,
If you do want to champion Ocean, I mean, I can't give you the jungle, but I can give you the ADC role. Andy Bendy basically plays a champion Ocean. He plays so many different ADCs. He will go for the dive aggro like the Kaisa, or take the scale snowball like the Jinx, even sit comfy with the mage, but he does well when he gets an aggressive edge. He does have the Ocean he can work with. That might spice it up a little bit for you, Ravish.
I mean, it does just a little bit, though, but considering what we got in that Ocean right now, for my two analysts, I watched how to find those pearls, those big brain pearls inside you, pluck that out, and show me the gems of knowledge that you currently have by giving me your predictions. That's right. I'm going to share it with you on this one. Who you got for me tonight?
I'm definitely on edge, and I'm just giving it to the jungle of Maryville. So going 2-1 on their side, but I could see this one being very close.
All right, all right. I mean, that's interesting. I will give SLU the 2-0. I'm not really a huge fan of predicting games before seeing the draft because I have no idea how these coaches draft. I know Julian is a smart guy. He's more like linear thinking. He's like book smart over street smart, but the book he's going off of is like the one he wrote himself. So it's kind of like a very like a one like individual thinking stuff, very stubborn, but it works out most of the time. So I'm excited to see like what both teams will draft. But 2-0 SLU is my prediction.
Wow, respect. So you know what? I'm gonna go the other way. I'm also personally on the SLU hype train, so I'm gonna give it over to 2-1 to St. Louis on that. So let's continue on with our casters for tonight for the Battle of St. Louis with Travis D and Dean Maryville Rebel Fox Merrick.
Thank you, Desk, and we are here ready to break into this battle before us here. My name is Travis D. I am joined here by my ever so lovely co-caster in Rebel Fox yet again. And Rebel, we got an exciting battle here before us.
Yeah, all of us are in our best, like, I guess what you would call like beach themed gear, as it's the last couple of days of summer where we're going to get a chance to do this, celebrating now what is the kickoff of what is UPL collegiate split because of the amount of collegiate teams we have in here. And first things first, we're kicking off with two of the top teams that we just saw out of UFest, two teams out of the same city, St. Louis University versus Maryville. That's bound to be like, just to kick off the season, a banger. There's absolutely no other way to put it.
I mean, let's go ahead and say it, man. Surf's Up are ready to see exactly what these two teams are going to be able to break out. And it's the fact that these are two teams, like you said, they didn't get to meet inside of HughFest. And, you know, we get to see this rivalry born here in front of us here in the UPL.
Yeah, out of the initial time that they met at Gateway Legends, which was the first time that we had a debut of St. Louis University, they were in groups with Maryville, who is coming off of being the second team inside of the collegiate university, like the championship after Winthrop, and then also being one of the favorites to win their own tournament, and St. Thomas, who just won UFest. That was their group. That was their initial coronation to League of Legends inside of collegiate. It didn't go well. They got a chance to bounce back, made it to finals, ended up losing to St. Thomas in that finals in a very close 2-1 matchup. But you can see how dangerous the roster when put together is. Maryville on the other side, again, they had kind of a rough loss to St. Thomas, that same champion, and since then they've actually been playing with their roster a little bit. I know today things are a bit different than what our desk was kind of alluding to, as they made some last minute changes, making sure to put substitutes into the roster as they're going to try out a number of these players they've had on this backup roster for some time, seeing what sticks and what makes their kind of number one roster that they compete with coming into CLUL, coming into some of the next splits coming up here.
Yeah, and they're going to be looking to see if these experiments are going to be their solution, right? Like, they have a stacked season ahead of them, not only inside the UPL, but this is them trying to figure out what the formula is going to be for them as the collegiate season starts to kick up towards the end of UPL. So that's going to be fantastic for them to try and start getting that formula for success. But I want to go back to what you were talking about with St. Louis here, because the big thing for me is I look at some of these names, and the desk highlighted a couple of these individual players, and these are some players that have had some very recent high highs.
Yeah, you talk about the access to proving grounds from the side of Strumpus and Cozy on Supernova. They made an unfortunately early departure, which was quite bad, but both of them have been playing extremely well, both for the combination of Supernova and then also on St. Louis University, looking like a pair that they can actually bank on here for the side. I know that Koso, who has very lot of experience working with those two players specifically, he knew that they are very carry oriented, and we can see that St. Louis University, they are capable of playing into some of their win conditions, constantly getting like a Kali and Rise and these preferential champions for these two. Another name that pops up, Andy Bendy, who hasn't been around in competitive for a little while, finally shows his face for St. Louis University, and I'm like, okay, has he regressed? Has he changed at all? Nope, he is still an absolute monster, still has a champion motion, as I was alluded to by Deserox, as he was playing mages in that bottom lane a handful of times, including a Cassiopeia game, because Strumpus loves Lelouch more than he likes the Cassiopeia in the mid lane. And so being flexible in that bottom lane, allowing these top two players to really get their pick of the litter when it comes to how deep their champion pools can be, extremely helpful for the versatility.
the versatility that Maryville is looking to present here, going back to talking about the experimentation and whatnot. We're seeing different members of the team moving around, trying to figure out what is the combination for success from there. And there's a bit of flexibility, albeit different, from the side of Maryville, especially with them bringing in some talent that they've had under their wings in the previous bits, but are now getting a moment to kind of come together and hopefully create something beautiful for them.
We'll start with a name that everybody's going to recognize, Evan Aurel. He was the player that was working with them for the entirety of the collegiate season, getting into that the finals matchup and everything along the way. Over the summer, wasn't working as much with the team, steps back in, still playing incredible League of Legends, still playing alongside Shady, has the experience with the roster to be able to make things work. Another one, obviously, Kind has been around for a little while here on the roster, has a very different skill set than the likes of Odd Orange. Nathan versus Nathan has been very fun to be able to watch between the combination of OJ and LJ, as we call them, between the two of those two. And mid lane, I think, is the other really big substitution. It is not going to be Spyrax in the mid lane. It's actually going to be the newest addition to the team in Getback, who some people might recognize from OCE, as he had come over from that region, was able to make his way into the United States, and now has become the mid laner here that we're testing out for the day.
I want to see what this player is going to bring to the table with possibly a very unique champion pool that could possibly be presented and whatnot. And I want to see if he's going to make the other team, kind of get back, stay true to the name, and really be that threat inside the mid lane, and see if he'll be able to throw a wrench in the plan of Strumpus here, who is a very well documented player here inside of the amateur scene.
Having been a professional player out of the Oceanic region, you think that he has the experience in terms of both individual play against a lot of those kind of other talents that have been about when you think about guys like Tally, or you think about other guys that had come from that region. But you also have to think about, like, in-game leadership-wise, Strumpus has really taken a step up for SLU. I know also took a very big step up for Supernova in that way. And I know Getback is one of those players as well, being able to be more vocal, assist his team quite a bit in kind of a lot of aspects of the game. Something that maybe is the intention behind it. I know Spyrax is a bit more quiet, a bit more secluded, despite the extremely high level of play. Perhaps they're looking for someone a little bit more vocal in the mid lane to compete with someone like Strumpus, who's going to take a bunch of that kind of that onus upon himself, and they want someone to match that here for Maryville.
And something I want to talk about that I feel like needs to be matched. I feel like every team goes into a matchup against Maryville with one thing: where is Shady going to be at? And I feel like that's a question that we'll have to see. How does Shady fit in with all these new pieces? And how does that go along? How do they mesh together? Because Shady, we know him. He doesn't play bot lane. He plays the entire map.
He's basically jungler too, which is pretty entertaining. The thing about, especially with Evan around in the matchup, you think, okay, does he have Ziggs in his back pocket? We've seen the Ziggs before. Does he have Varus in the back pocket? Certainly he's got Varus in the back pocket. It should be something that they have practiced enough to be able to break out Shady from this bottom lane if they need to. I know Senna Tom Kench was really kind of their go-to consistency last time we saw the duo come out and about. But for today, I can't imagine that's going to be continuous. Instead, I have to think at least that Evan is capable of stepping back into that more like a solo AD role, allowing his support to move about the map. The fun part about this is that we've seen Tsum on the other side kind of perform both roles, where we've seen him both play in the laning phase, aggressing against with the likes of like a Draven in that lane, focusing with Andy Benny on trying to win things out in the 2-on-2. We've also seen things like his Braum, where he is roaming everywhere on the map, making insane plays. One of the coolest outplays I saw in all of HughFest actually was Tsum on Braum, just living under a 4-man tower dive, which was really awesome to watch. He actually can match some of what Made Shady's capable of doing. Tsum is somebody that I have an eye on, specifically because when you look at, okay, they've got Cozy, they've got Strumpus, they've got Andy. We know how talented they are. The two people we don't see as much were Tsum and then Zaga, their junglers. So those are the two that are under my microscope consistently until we really start to see this team pick up some games under their belt and get an understanding of what they do.
And I also want to see what is going to be the end result of that. What is going to be their game plan going into this matchup here? Because you have Shady, who you already talked about, was jungler number 2. He's not a support. He's just jungler 2. On the flip side, you talked about it. There's some adaptability there that is down there inside the bot lane. And you could have somebody who could play that second jungle, or you could play for pure lane dominance. And I would love to see what the answer they think would be best going into this game number 1 inside of this best of 3, because honestly, if you're going to try something, if you think you might have an idea and some of that works, game 1 is the place to show it off.
That is. We're waiting on draft to come in here and
Yes.
to get a chance to look at these two teams, and that's why we're still stalling for time, is waiting for things to get cleaned up in that particular regard. But one way or another, Like, this is going to be an exciting matchup. We're going to see a lot of places clash across the map. One of the big ones, I think, on both teams, like top lane is going to be somebody that absorbs quite a bit of pressure. Mid lane's going to absorb quite a bit, especially with Substitute on one side, on the other side. My favorite, though, is, again, jungle, because we didn't get a chance to talk too much about jungle. We have Kind stepping in for one, Zaga on the other side. We haven't seen too much from Zaga. He's been about in collegiate, but we haven't seen him step onto a really big roster in this particular regard. Had a lot of very kind of standout performances at HuFest. Kind is the interesting one, because, again, Odd Orange was one of the pieces for Maryville that was working very well. A lot of people lauded him being an extremely talented jungler, being able to support the remainder of the map. And so now, Kind stepping in, it's a question of what is this shift for gameplay style from the side of Maryville to have a different Nathan in the roster.
I'm going to say copious amounts of Kindred. That is immediately something that pops into my head. As we all know, Kind Jungle is a fantastic Kindred player, but I'm curious to see if it means that we're going to see a bit more of a different playstyle in terms of the aggression level, right? When you have that Kindred, one of the big things that you see from Kindred players when they translate their pool is they're really good at being able to track numerous things on the map. They're constantly looking at the mark. Kind Jungle's had some time now to kind of foster that and try to branch out into many different champion pools. So curious to see what the answer will be. While on the other side, like you said, the jungle matchup is looking exciting between these two because there's a lot of unanswered questions, and we're going to find out the answers as we're getting into the draft here.
Thing I think that we're going to end up pointing out for the likes of Maryville is having in Kind and also Get Back in the jungle mid position. Before, what it was is that Spyrex tended to be somebody who either absorbed a bunch of ganks or sat in mid lane and kind of moved as he needed to with the remainder of the team, whereas Odd Orange was making a lot of the early aggression. He was kind of, I call him the early game engine for the side of Maryville, just because a lot of their early stuff came from him and Shady attacking the remainder of the map. It feels like that could be flipped on its head a bit, where instead it's Get Back who wants to kind of get out and about and assist Kind jungle instead in some of that jungle v jungle warfare that we might see, especially since Zaga is somebody who I think have the capability of absorbing some of that pressure and maybe folding in this particular case, given, like, again, when you think about names, like Zaga isn't the one that you would recognize on the side of St. Louis University. Maybe this is the game plan for Maryville, is attacking that jungle position with Get Back, and that's why we see the jungle mid shift rather than just swapping out one or two of the players across the roster.
It'll be very interesting to see, as we are seeing these bans are coming through pretty slow here. Both these teams really taking their time to pick apart at each another here, and it's going to be curious to see what exactly the priorities are being. Lucian taken off the table, Varus taken off the table. So far, double marksman. See if that continues on forward, or maybe we start to see some love towards some of these other strong pits like Aurelia.
Lucian specifically against the side of St. Louis University needs to be removed, just because, again, it is flexible for Andy. He plays it in the bottom side, and for Strumpus. I'm guessing Cozy Shroud's got it in his back pocket somewhere, but it probably would not be anywhere near first choice. It would have to be an extreme flex in like a GP or something like that. But it is extremely valuable for St. Louis University to have that, especially when you've got the flexibility between mid and bot. So they don't want to give that away. Same with the Aurelia, where it's like you don't want to give it to Cozy, you don't want to give it to Strumpus, don't give it to either. That does leave up either the likes of the Akali or the Rise for the side of St. Louis University. Whichever of those is going to get through, they have the ability to take it on their first rotation on red side. They are taking away comfort from Evan RL Shady. Thresh is being off of the board. We talked about how he got basically a point-and-click skill shot ability when he's got these hook champions under his back. And then Evan getting taken off of something extremely powerful, extremely comfortable, something he's been practiced on for quite some time on his first reintroduction.
And I like this. They already take off the Rise. I am curious now what is going to be Maryville's first pick here, as we're going to have the last band to round us off here. And there's a couple picks that are definitely power picks up there that Maryville might decide they want to lean back to.
There might be. LeBlanc was one of them. Get Back is actually a pretty proficient LeBlanc player, and especially with Rise taken off the board immediately, St. Louis University, they sniff that out and they say, okay, we don't want to give that over at V1. We don't know what the response is going to be with no Lucian and with no Rise in the back pocket, which are two of the best picks that you could have had for Strumpus. Taking away that LeBlanc pitches away another bit of that champion pool from the remainder of the team.
Very interesting if this does get locked in. It's currently a hover at the moment in time, and it is locked in, so we will have a Twisted Fate first pick here.
And immediately, this brings back kind of memories of what was the old school roster for Maryville when you had Wolfie about. Twisted Fate was kind of like the pinnacle of expectation for Wolfie, where it wasn't about playing for this laning phase. It was about playing for the rest of the jungle matchup, the top matchup, the bottom matchup, everywhere on the map, and just striking as fast as possible. And again, with this substitution, this was almost the expectation. They're subverting everything that we're thinking about right now, blocking that and initially wanting to attack the map as fast as possible with their new addition to mid lane.
With a Camille locked in immediately on the other side. Very surprised to see them just say, all right, you know what, Camille strong into whatever you want, Chippies. They know Chippies wants to play something aggressive, so they said, we'll lock in premier aggression for themselves and a Trundle to back it up.
Zaga is very good at the Trundle. His pillars are excellent in terms of their positioning. He's usually not going to be able to waste one of those. I think even if you press the button accidentally, it would somehow end up being better than the majority of Trundle pillars that could actually be thrown out. So giving enough credit over to the side of Zaga, just because, again, my expectation for this champion for him, it appears to be the most comfort that he's got on pretty much anything across the board. Now, this gets interesting. We heard something from a producer, and I just want to make sure that that's locked in before anything else. I'll talk about Camille for Cozy Shroud as well as over the tournament over this last weekend. This was also one of the champions he pulled out. When it wasn't the Akali, the Camille seemed to be right there on deck.
Camille right there on deck, but man, we got Miss Fortune on deck here, as that is going to be a pickup for Evan RL down there in the bot side, and we also get to see Kind Jungle on the signature Kindred Jungle.
That we do. An interesting combination of champions here, as we have 3 squishy champions, all of which are relatively auto attack based, not too much spell in order. Like, it's really interesting. We haven't seen an MF at all either.
Ooh.
This okay. I saw the tweet and I was like, I thought he was capping, right? I thought Strumpus was just like he was fooling people. He said, I'm a Fizz main on this patch. This is not only a strong champion after they buffed and tried to change, and then they're like, nah, we'll just get rid of the changes that like nerfed him whatsoever. So now he's just stronger altogether. But this is perhaps the greatest matchup that Fizz has. There is nothing that a Twisted Fate can do into a Fizz that really has too much of an impact unless you can roam very, very quickly in the game, which is not easy to do when he's able to solo queue you basically at level 2 or 3.
I'm just happy to see my underwater snitch here, as I like to look at him as. But he's fantastic. I love Fizz, and all right, Strumpus, you got my attention fully on this. See how Maryville responds, as well as, like you said, they got a bunch of squish in their composition here. I'm gonna be honest with you. I look at this right now, Misfortune TF. If this Fizz gets going, they're gonna have a hard time escaping.
That they will. I want to point out one of the first times that I watched competitive League of Legends was actually like Worlds 2015. I got to watch the spring split, or the summer split, but I wasn't watching like too heavily in that regard. But my brother forced me to watch the World Tournament with him, and the thing that sold me on this game altogether was my favorite player of all time, Westor, solo killing Faker on Fizz. So that's why Fizz is one of my favorite characters of all time. Westor is one of my favorite players of all time. So Strumpus, you have very high expectations right now because that is what you're supposed to live up to.
I just like the idea that young Rebel has got his brother behind him, just like, watch, listen, look at it.
He's to blame for why I have to talk about this game all the time.
It all comes back. It all comes
back, yeah.
But we do see Andy Bendy going ahead and grabbing Ezreal for themselves, and Maryville, as a response, do grant themselves Nautilus and Jax up in the top lane.
Okay, this is Chippies. He's responding to the likes of that Camille pick as much as possible, having one of these, like, I wouldn't call it a direct counter, but again, one of these kind of softer counter type champions, being able to use that as Chippies into the likes of this Camille. The lane can go extremely well if you can get aggressive against it very quickly, which is, again, for Get Back, he's in a very rough situation right now, given the lane state that he's been put into against the likes of this Fizz. So expectation has to be that he's going to get out and about as fast as possible, try to attack this top lane, get this Jax rolling against this Camille, make sure that that laning phase going in their favor.
Yeah, because, I mean, Jax inside of a long range, like, once he gets going, man, you just hear the thwonking. It will haunt you in your dreams. The sound of bricks falling down in the top lane. I'm curious, man, because we saw the Des talk so much about the top side of the map, actually. Talking about this now, Chats, Camille, Cozy, and Chippies. This is going to be very fun to be able to witness. It's also going to be fun to see how this the interactions around the map are going to be based around it.
Yeah, I agree with that statement. One of the big ones, I think, is, again, if we're watching one-on-ones kind of unfold across the map, Top lane is a bit volatile between the two of them because I've seen Camille take this matchup, even though Jax is typically like considered a counter matchup into the likes of the Camille. But that's going to be, again, kind of replicated in the mid lane as well, where Fizz should be perfectly fine into Twisted Fate for the beginning of the lane. If you hit level 6, immediately Fizz is going to have too much kind of presence. And so it comes down to, again, it's a combination of Khan jungle versus Zaga, and then you've got support versus support, where in this one, it seems like with MF Nautilus, you almost want to press your lane advantage. Whereas on the other side, like with an Ezreal, it's very hard to get him stuck in place even with a Nautilus pre-level 6, which should open up for Tsum actually roaming about on the map, especially with Rakan. You have a lot of quick pressure to apply. You're a lot faster to lanes more often than a lot of other supports might be.
I would love to see if he could be a little bit of a second jungler for his team, especially since he's got Fizz. And you have the likes of Khan Jungle on the signature Kindred pick for himself. I'm very curious to see what the aftermath could possibly be here, especially since he's on a signature champion, and we all know what a Kindred looks like when it's starved out. And honestly, they have the makings to possibly starve out Kindred if it comes down to a point where they're able to track him and keep him locked down inside his own jungle.
Yeah, the cool part about this is that, like, when you think about counters to likes the likes of the Trundle pick, like a couple of them are like ranged champions, like Graves, who has the ability to kind of kite out the Trundle without losing a bunch of the AD and having the ability to just get away from him in general. Kindred's another one, but it's a lot of the aggression that happens in the earlier stage of the game. So again, it feels like Kind Jungle needs to absorb some of the pressure from his team, especially again from Get Back. If he can help kind of press onto an advantage of the Twisted Fate in wave clear and in range over top of the Fizz in like level 1, level 2 territory, maybe that Twisted Fate helping out will then be able to aggress against the Trundle and helpfully kind of accelerate what is Kind Jungle's best champion on this newer jungler here for the side of Maryville. That might be at least the intention behind this pick. Not only comfort, but it's also supposed to be something good into the likes of the Trundle, which we saw prioritized very heavily from the side of St. Louis University.
And comfort can lead you to some very decisive dubs here. Have to see if the end result will be able to speak the same, though, as both these teams are looking to compete against one another here inside of the game number 1 in this best of 3. The Battle of St. Louis is here as we get to see Maryville taking on, as my sources tell me, SLU.
That's your sources. Oh, good times. I got yelled at twice for saying SLU instead of SLU, and so I'm going to call them SLU until somebody from SLU tells me that that is not the correct thing to say, just because of what we've seen before. This is Cozy Shroud. He is not going to fall victim to the classic blunder. We saw a couple of top laners end up in that river brush, just trying to defend from both directions and get pinched from both sides. Maryville was one of the teams that accomplished this, and so Cozy, instead just hanging back, he's out in the river, he's going to catch them on this invade, allow for a bit of counter jungling. It's going to be just the no wards actually traded for the red ward here from the side of St. Louis University, who get that against Kind on the likes of this Kindred, and especially with no vision dropped in the opposing jungle at all. It's an interesting little caveat now that Maryville will have to deal with, is that again, they have no information of where Zaga is going to be starting, but that information's there for him.
The information warfare is definitely in the favor of SLU over here onto the red side, and seeing what they're going for at this current moment in time. Do see them just kind of playing towards this bot side and whatnot, and they get all this free information right here as you get to see Kindred starting over on the red buff.
That you do. Both paths going to be matched here in the immediate phases of the game. Taking note really quickly also, again, unsealed spellbook, but also especially the big thing for B, which is the D-mats that are going to come from the likes of, it's Get Back, but his name's Bullfrog Bill. You gotta love these names that come about. Otter Love Story and Bullfrog Bill, of course. Bullfrog Bill is, of course, Get Back, and then Otter Love Story is going to be Andy Bendy. Just because we're going to keep calling them those names and not the names you see on screen, just in case you don't know, but that is the idea here. But again, having those D-mats in this mid lane matchup up against the likes of the Fizz is helpful for trying to get out of lane as much as possible, and helping to control that minion wave up against the likes of this bad matchup that you're going to have to be in. Because again, anytime you pull a gold card, it's not really a threat to the likes of the Fizz. He presses E when you throw that, and immediately you are down the only defensive tool you've got against the likes of this assassin.
And you can see Shady is playing for that dominance, baby. First blood. And that is going to be all she wrote. Maryville coming out strong.
just tanking hook after hook. I think 2 of them during just the first level alone here for the likes of Shady, and especially with an MF in the back pocket with that Comet under tow. There's a lot of poking damage to actually be had on the bottom side of the map, so that is the veteran support on the side of Maryville that is going to be in a great position to continue attacking that lane. You see Zaga rushed up here as fast as possible, but Kind is available.
Zaga didn't notice
That
the
pillar!
ward over there. That's a counter-strike. That's going to force a flash, but it will be followed up. Kind Jungle finds Zaga. Chippies now is going to be able to block the hook shot and thwonk him in the back of the head. Cozy goes down.
What in the world? They saw him on that ward that got placed down relatively quickly, and Kind, like, if you pillar him into you, maybe you have a chance of fighting that out if your Camille shows up. But right there, Zaga throws a pillar between himself and Kindred, and all that does is spaces himself away from the ranged champion. Like, that was about as disastrous a pillar. I hyped up his pillars saying, okay, they were amazing all throughout HuFest. Right there, that's the first really horrible one I think I've seen him throw whatsoever.
And I do want to highlight the fact that Kind Jungle, he waited there for a moment. His senses were tingling. He knew Wolf was telling him that there was somebody about inside the river and was able to capitalize on that immediately. Right now, Maryville having a fantastic time in both their side lanes here. And it's boding very well for what strategy they may want to impose.
Yeah, this attacking on bottom side hopefully gets to keep up, because again, that will lock TSM into this laning phase and close off a little bit of kind of the pressure that can be put about on the map by the likes of this Rakan. And MF feels fine too. Like, if you get MF into a comfortable place, it's not exactly the easiest thing in the world for the likes of this Ezreal Rakan to punish her, and so that allows for Shady to start roaming about on the map. So a bit more pressure to bottom side could be also something that you could watch for Kind Jungle to try to exploit. Problem is, there are double flashes, especially into an Ezreal Rakan, which is already hard enough to try to manage against. So, difficulties there for that.
Shady is looking for blood with these anchor toss, but TSM jumping in for a quick trade. It's just a little bit of a duel between these two in the bot side, but look at who is here.
The ward and the Tribe Rush well put down by TSM. They caught it just at the last second, but Shady's already in.
Yeah, Auto Love Story trying to do what he can. Andy Bendy is getting bent right now. The damage is immense, and Shady flashing forward. They go ahead and take out Andy, but now the fight continues on forward, but Zaga's taking too much damage. You got Strumpus all on his lonesome. He can't play for, he can't be a trickster, and Kind Jungle finds the kill on the Strumpus.
Nice response, TP, as Maryville has just completely controlled this entire map, top to bottom. Bottom lane, they found aggression a couple of times, didn't even need their jungler to win that 2-on-2 situation between these. And then, of course, the double TP out of mid lane, making sure that Strumpus was going to be able to clean anything on the back end, end up just shutting everything out, pulling this dragon off the board, as now Zaga wasn't able to be anywhere with, so no support from the remainder of his team. And they've already set Chippies into a good place. Every single lane on the map, everywhere on the map, controlled by the side of Maryville.
But look at how beautiful this is. Kind Jungle sitting over here in the wings, and just look at how this turns into disasterific for the side of SLU.
Yeah, I mean, you see, immediately Ezreal's just half health at the beginning of this fight. There is no competition. This is a 2v2 just win outright for this team right here. They didn't need anybody else to show up, as Evan RL gets to pull the first kill. And then you can see Kind's response as Zaga is here, means that he gets to chunk him down to half health. The only person that can accomplish anything is Strumpus, who gets gold carded after using the E, trying to find Evan RL, who hadn't burned the flash quite yet. Like, everything that could have gone right there for Maryville went completely in their favor. As again, it's Maryville matching pressure from the likes of the Fizz with a TP. The mid lane hasn't been able to be punished quite yet. It's been very good control from Get Back, making sure that's going to go their way. The Kindred is snowballing already during the course of this game. It's exactly how this composition should be playing out in their preference.
And Get Back doing a great job for himself, making sure to use... He still has his Destiny, by the way. He didn't use that to get down there into the bot side, so he still can have more pressure down here in one of these side lanes, and that's terrifying to think about. It's another hook. TSM. You don't need to catch those.
Shady's just like on site. It is on site with this Nautilus right now against this Rakan, against this Ezreal. They're both just like, he's not gonna throw a hook, right? He's not gonna throw a hook, right? Actually.
Oh yeah, Shroud gets Counter-Strike at the perfect time there. That's a solo kill by Chippies.
Level 6 had the double stack, has his W and his Sheen up, and that is a lot of damage in case you can't do that math on the likes of the Jax. Enough to bring down the Camille, as that's a solo kill in the top side, already generating their own advantages on cross sides of the map. Bottom lane has found 2 of their own, basically. Top side finds 1s of his own, and Kind still gets just to attack everywhere. Strumpus hasn't been able to do anything with the likes of this yet. Again, the Fizz is still waiting to scale up once the first item starts to come through, starts to be an absolute menace with the ultimate that can come out and aggress against the entire enemy team. But man, what control from Maryville so far. 3K ahead of their St. Louis counterparts.
Doing a fantastic job for themselves right now. 6-0 is what the scoreboard says, and let me tell you, it exactly says that. Look at this. Gold lead has just been strewed across the map in favor of Maryville as well.
Yeah, talk about the 800 gold lead in the jungle and 1,000 gold lead in the top lane right now makes this miserable. Again, this Jax versus Camille matchup is incredibly volatile to begin with when it comes to the hook shot versus the counter-strike interaction. If you are proper on the Jax or the Camille, you can use that to kind of use to get a better of that trading situation. And especially if the counter-strike is used improperly by the Jax, that's very punishable from the likes of the Camille, as that means you dodge out on his only CC and you get to auto-attack him freely, which usually will eventually go the way of the likes of the Camille. But given how far down that Cozy's been put inside of this laning phase, that's not likely to ever really swap, barring a bunch of ganks or something from Zaga or from Strumpus to turn this lane back on its head. And those two right now are struggling for air on their own, down a kill or down a death, down CS to their counterparts in this map.
Zaga doesn't even have boots yet, man. He is not making any tracks around the map at this current moment in time, and is definitely just looking to try and build up some itemization. But Cozy taking so much damage, trades it back to Chippies. T-Sum is here. Cozy is going to almost die on his own. The Hextech ultimatum being put in. The heal was just enough. Sweep the legs, and Chippies will find a kill before you can possibly find a way out looking for 2, but Zaga blows the flash and gets the shutdown.
And that's T-Sum trying to find aggression on the opposite side of the map, using the roaming of this Recon to do, accomplish something. That can be fired the back from the likes of Andy Bendy, so the entire bottom side quadrant is now going to be taken from Kind Jungle and Shady, moving in with some of the wards. Rift Herald's available, and they've already got 2 plates off this tower. This is just going to be first tower on bottom side after the trade and nearly 2 traded kills for just the life of Chippies, where again, Trundle's not even able to really do that much to the tower, can't pull off too many plates. It is win after win after win, chaining play after play, individual prowess showing up here for Maryville.
Oh man, and we can see this up here in the top side. You can see where Cozy got a little bit of confidence, had the cavalry show up, but look at what Chippies just does to this man's HP.
Extremely lucky that that shield had come out from T-Sum, because again, I think if that one battle dance doesn't show up right there, that minion auto attack would have been enough actually to kill off Cozy Shroud, which would have been tragic that he loses his life to that, and then immediately, that might be one more auto attack, that might have been the difference maker to keep Rakan alive, is just the ability for Cozy Shroud to live through that one minion auto attack, as they're trying for Chippies again. Zaga has no faith. He walks nearly on top of Chippies, but even then, he's just like, I don't fancy our chances. I'm walking out of this situation.
I don't either, man. If I was a gamble man, I'd put my money on Chippies right now. That's a Trundle Camille going into a Jazz at 3-1-1 and has all the components, the makings of a Divine Sunderer. I wouldn't like those odds either.
I suppose the intention maybe in this situation is that because the mark was on Raptors and they know that Kind is like capable of playing this champion to great aplomb, maybe they're like, okay, if he's on Raptors and we go for a topside play and it doesn't work out perfectly, he shows up top lane and cleans up 2 more kills and we get nothing from this situation. And then they clamp off the bottom side of the map with just their powerful bot lane. Instead, they go for Dragon and then they're going to move up to the top side of the map. I was hoping they were going to make a play for those Raptors because you know that they're available. Shady's here, Kind's here, and Evans here. Maybe they have a chance to go do it, but instead they're probably just going to back off after all things. Bottom lane tower's already been broken. They can put their bot lane into mid lane right now and then start shifting from there if they really want to do something like that.
I mean, off screen, we didn't get to see it on screen, but Destiny was used, and T-Sum did have to flash. So they definitely asserted some dominance towards that Raptor camp, but they decided that they didn't want chicken. They weren't about the protein just yet, so they will let that go by. And currently in the state of the game, Maryville really doing a good job controlling the pace, but I want to see what does SLU do here to kind of bring some of their pieces back into the fold. And I'm especially looking at this Fizz from Strumpus that we both were very much so like, ooh, okay, hold on, there's a Fizz in the game. I want to see it actually pop out because right now it's struggling at the current moment.
Well, right now you have what is like an MF who have effectively just been like catching waves for the most part, and against the Ezreal, eventually that's going to get outscaled. Strumpist in a side lane, I was going to say, into either Jax or into the likes of Evan, can actually generate his own pickoff when it comes to the amount of pressure he can put on, and that's what he's going to try right here.
Looking to see if he can catch Chippies out like
Oh
a fish out of water,
goodness.
but he takes no damage, man. And
does not.
Zaga is late to the party. Chippies is going to be able to hop over the ward. You got
So
3
upset.
members. Is this even enough? It is. Strumpus gets his first kill of the game.
Yeah, instead of fighting his way out of that situation, which I think could have been possible for the likes of Chippies if he had Counter-Strike that he'd used, actually Cozy's getting himself caught out right here.
Yeah, he's getting thrown to the depths here. Hook, line, and sinker. He's going to have to flash over the wall, and he'll be safe in the mid lane.
That he will. Just be counter jungling on the other side of the map. Again, this is the advantage I think that we can actually generate here for St. Louis University, which is when you've got Fizz in the fold, and you've got the Shark as like a potential tool, and then you've got things like Trundle Ultimate and Trundle Pillar, which are both good for like one-on-one kind of situations. When you've got the CC that could come out from the likes of a Rakan, you've got a number of ways, even with like Camille Ultimate, you have ways to single out people so that you can put pressure, and they've really been leaning into this Jax as being kind of the target of affection for all of this.
Yeah, they didn't land the stun there. Hextech Ultimatum was used. Chippies is going to get hit up by that pillar, and it's going to be them just tanking this down to look to continue this forward, and that is going to be a kill going again into the pocket of Strumpist.
They have been able to lay on pressure into the top side of the map. This was the response for everything else. Andy Benny just able to get away. Yeah, this has been kind of Maryville. They're saying, all right, we are comfortable with you putting additional pressure onto the likes of the Jax, as the Jax has the goal to compete against Camille alone, and they're trading on the other side with MF, trying to get her into a position where you feel comfortable on her kind of carrying in team fights. When she goes for the lethality build, you've got the Youmu's, you'll have the Eclipse coming out here in just a second, and that's going to feel powerful enough to where, like, in a team fight, if you're mispositioned even a little bit, or if you don't have, like, E on Fizz, something along those lines to reposition, all of a sudden you've got multiple members going down. So Maryville, comfortable not like holding a vice grip onto their lead and trying to expand it super hard. Instead, just trading gold back and forth, knowing that they can try to handle the Fizz in the later stages if this ADC is available for some of the team fighting that's going to come about.
I also like the fact that Bullfrog Bill, aka Get Back, is applying pressure just by having the gold card selected. They see Bullfrog Bill coming at them, and they say, we'll go ahead and take those odds. They immediately jump onto him, knock him up. He has nowhere else to go. Zaga is going to take a bite out of him.
They are just laying pressure into wherever the Camille is supposed to be on the entirety of the map. This time, Maryville, at least, they're going to be responding with the likes of the Rift Herald take, which should help them out with a tower push, especially in the mid lane, since Ezreal's been holding that one. They've had more than enough push to be able to drop some of the health and some of the plates off that before the 14-minute mark. And now they have the option. Basically, you throw it down as long as it has an attack and you've got anyone around it, especially if you're able to get away with it. That's almost certainly just a killed off tower to be able to kind of operate on. Cozy, thankfully, with all this pressure that's been put in a side lane, has been able to use, kind of Camille tactics of attacking the tower. Should be able to pull this one off with the Trinity Force, trying to get this Camille back into the one-on-one state, just because, again, if Jax is as far ahead as he was, about 1,000 gold ahead of where Cozy Shroud was at one point in the game, that means the side lane's unplayable, and that is just a miserable place to be, because you want side lanes to be available for Fizz to be able to attack. When he's able to roam out, he's able to use the Shark and things of that sort. And so here, St. Louis, they've tried to get themselves into a position where Cozy Shroud's going to be fine in that one-on-one matchup, so they don't lose that possibility of the big potential.
Dragon is coming up. Herald was just sent slamming into the mid lane tower of SLU, and they can feel the pressure like it's an old Paramore song right now, as Maryville going to be able to get more resources for themselves at this current moment in time. Grab a dragon, while SLU is just content with trying to get some of this gold lead ashore.
They are. They're trying to fight back so that they don't just like lose out in terms of the game when it comes to fighting versus fighting. Because at the moment, like when it comes to St. Louis, like again, Jax eventually will just be better at split pushing. Actually, they're going to make a play underneath the mid tower as fast as possible.
Yeah, they're looking to go in there and try and see who they'll be able to grab. Can't stop the bullet time. Evan RL is going to be able to do damage on the way out. So far, a 1-for-1 trade here as Maryville continues to aggress in the mid lane.
pull the mid tower, and they're able to trade the 1-for-1. Again, Jax is also making work, while on the other side of the map, the Camille is making things work, just trading gold between those two top laners. And again, I think Maryville's fine with Jax being allowed to be wherever he is in this final plan on one-on-one matchup, as they're going to be comfortable eventually with that Jax versus Camille one-on-one. It's the rest of the map that they've been putting resources into. Specifically, Kind has pulled now 3 kills, a couple of towers in that like back pocket as well, just being around for the ambient gold that has come through from there. And now they can rely on him to be one of these consistent damage dealers. So you have these big team fighting ultimate from your Misfortune. You have a big consistent damage dealer again in the likes of Dying Jungle, and you've got, of course, like the gold card for kind of negating a bunch of this. You've got a good Vanguard in the likes of Shady for your team fighting to come through. SLU desperately trying to keep their gold as high as possible so that Strumpus can try to remove one of these threats from a fight as fast as possible and get them through this mid game. Make sure that this soul point probably isn't going to go over without some semblance of a fight coming through from SLU, because if that happens, all of a sudden Ezreal just gets run through before he really starts to scale into the game.
Yeah, also, who wants to fight this Jats one-on-one from the side of SLU right now, right? He's stacking up some items. He's getting to be a very terrifying lad over here in the side lanes. And yet again, SLU, tried and true, down here into the bot side, the camera pans, and you can see multiple members looking to sink their fangs into whoever shows up. But nobody from the side of Maryville is here.
They don't care. They actually don't. There's 4 members on bottom side right now. They're going to trade the split gold of the tower between Strumpus and Cozy Shroud for top lane, where Kind Jungle is going to be able to get there. And they could even put pressure on a mid lane if they really wanted to. You can see Shady making that shift into mid. And 4 members have to back before anything can come out. Right now, Rakan is there. Shady's going to make the play.
Oh, he's not going to be able to play the game. Destiny comes through, but Bullfall Bill was not needed as the kill goes over to Shady, and Maryville are just keeping ahead of the tempo here.
Too many members committed to the bottom side of the map for the likes of St. Louis University. They're anticipating somebody showing up so that they can pull that kill, and then their map doesn't look nearly as bad as the Ezreal should be perfectly fine. But every member from Maryville was on top side. They were able to flood not only top lane, but also mid lane, pull both towers, and find that kill against the Ezreal, getting him off the map as fast as possible. This early game for Maryville has looked so ridiculously clean. They are now like 2 minutes away from what is the soul point. That's going to be the Mountain Soul. And that's going to make it near impossible for this already tough side lane to work out. They've got Kind Jungle, who's in an extremely powerful situation, should be on like the Collector really quickly, and that's going to make it very easy to win team fights. And again, if Kind Jungle is that powerful, jumps into a team, even if he gets jumped on, you just throw the ultimate out, and the second that ultimate's about to expire, Evan RL is able to throw in a bunch of damage with that ultimate coming through from the lethality Misfortune. It feels like there's so much to layer here that St. Louis, like they're trying as hard as possible to lean into one side lane and just pull gold so that they can attempt to fight this next dragon, but they are miles away from where they would need to be in order for that to work right now.
I'm actually very curious on what the Kindred stacks are currently looking at this current moment in time, because like you said, it's been a very assertive early game here, and this Kindred has been doing a great job. Only has 3 at the most. It hasn't even hit the break point of 4 stacks yet.
Nope.
So this Kindred is terrifying.
They want to work into the river. They're only a minute out, so they're going to try to put some shallow vision down as T-Sim was working that out. I was hoping they would maybe try to force it and go for the Grump, but this close to the dragon, they're like, okay, it's not worth going for the 3rd stack or the 4th stack, getting that advantage. Obviously, that'd be huge for Kindred, but they don't want to ruin anything. Instead, they're just going to keep their setup. They're going to push up mid lane. They're actually going to find a kickoff onto what looks... Oh,
he's locked away, man. Like, Andy can't do anything about that. He couldn't move.
Yeah, it's a really miserable thing whenever I see a cleanse on an Ezreal, but this is one of those games where it feels like you have to take cleanse on Ezreal, because if you get hit with any CC, it's getting layered on again and again and again. That's gold card. That's got a not GLP, that's Everfrost coming out here from the likes of the Twisted Fate. You have the hook, you have the ultimate, you have the auto attack from Nautilus. Anybody who gets CC'd, that single target is staying CC'd for a long time. That not only ruins mid push, and it takes Ezreal off the board, but it completely removes a member here from the side of the map. As yeah, they're going to have to get shoved out of mid lane. All we need to see now from Maryville is, like, if they push out mid and shove it in one additional wave, they've got the vision control to just walk at Dragon. They don't have to worry about literally anything else. They've got all 5 members down here, even Kind grabbing the Grump for free right now.
Yep, just grabbed it for free. He was just like, all right, this is all part of our plan. We take 1 member, I still get my Grump, and we get Dragon. Let's go. Dragon is up, and this is Soul Point here, Rebel.
That it is. TP and there's a TP into the back. Yeah, I'm waiting for Camille to actually show up.
Zaga is taking some damage here. Chippies is in the midst of it all. Then it got a huge flank over into the backside. T-Sun finds 4 members. Fantastic. The bullet time goes wide. Cozy Shroud gets Evan RL. It is blood being shed on both sides, but ultimately Maryville is still alive. Chippies has the Counter-Strike prepped, and it is only Andy Bendy left to tell the tale as Dragon Soul will be claimed by Maryville.
Massive appreciation here to the side of Cozy Shroud and Tsum, who found this really deep flank angle, and I thought it was actually going to cost quite a bit in this fight. But again, you have nothing to pair with it when it comes to through damage. Ezreal is all single target because it's all focused on whoever you're hitting with your Qs and your auto attacks. Zaga is the same exact way. Strumpus is the one person with a little bit of AoE, but he cannot carry that hard on this Fizz when he hasn't had the kind of early game that you've been looking for them to have. And so you can see this fight looks okay. You can see Strumpus finds really good play onto Evan RL, but the ultimate from Kindred stalls this long enough that now all of a sudden this 3v3, 4v4 situation ends up getting abated because of how powerful Kind Jungle is, his positioning over the wall, making it super easy for him to deliver damage. And Chippy's on the other side just winning out in the 2-on-1 situation means this is huge for Maryville, winning the fight, getting themselves Mountain Soul. Now they've got way too much of a gold lead to respond to from the side of SLU. That's probably the best bet you were going to get for a team fight, and unfortunately you just got outstatted for the most part.
Yeah, unfortunately, that window of opportunity has closed, but SLU looking to press their advantages elsewhere. You can see they're going back to their tried and true. Send multiple members down to the bot side, see what we can get off of that, while Maryville looking to continue pressing their advantages throughout the rest of the map.
They are. They've got an amazing warding line here in this topside jungle. It's not even shallow around the side of the Baron. It's really just like all the way through. You've got this Krug ward, and then you've got this amazing ward right here covering both entrances around this Mountain Drake. The only place they're losing is around this Raptor pit. That ward got pinched off, and they're going to try to make a play here maybe, but they can't contest Shady.
No, they can't. No, you do not contest them. Shady right now is at Big Daddy level right now on this Nautilus. He is something that you do not want to mess with right now. As Cozy, this is a 2v1 in the bot side, and the pressure's there, and they immediately saw Strumpus, and they pull onto Baron.
Interesting little macro decision, because they're going to lose Baron here, almost certainly. Twisted Fate can try to get out of this lane as fast as possible. They're going to fight, and they're going to take both at once.
Yeah, they're just going to go ahead and take out Tsum, and they're going to keep away the Ezreal. Zaga's going to try and do what he can. Chippy's has got a beautiful stopwatch there. Tell him what time it is. Chippy says, it's time for the rest of my team to get here. Cozy Shroud now on the retreat path. Strumpus taking a good amount of damage as Evan RL just does so much damage with his lethality. Misfortune. Chippy's in hot pursuit on this rabbit, looking to pull him right out of the hat itself. And Strumpus, he's trying to get away as much as he can. The rest of his team is not there to save him. A gold card later, he's wrangled by Bullfrog Bill, and Chippies will finish him off.
And just like that, again, Maryville convert. I actually appreciate the creativity from SLU, where they hovered around the Camille with this Fizz for as long as possible. They didn't see where Strumpus was across the map, and it was Chippies who didn't actually extend by taking a one-on-one and eventually losing, which would have cost his team on the other side of the map. Instead, just let Cozy Shroud push up. Worst case scenario, if he's the only one there and Fizz is on the other side of the map, you can then take that one-on-one with Cozy Shroud in the very long lane. But instead, they had the Fizz there, pushed for the inhibitor, traded that one away, but gave up a Baron and a massive fight, and then got completely punished on the backside on the escape from that fight, which now allows Chippy to push up on the bottom side and the rest of his team grabs the inhibitor. This is damage that is irreparable here from the side of St. Louis University. They are not going to be able to compete against the Elder Dragon unless they force really hard. These waves should crash from such a long distance away, and especially with like no control mage, you've got a Fizz and you've got no real ADC because your Ezreal is far more focused on team fighting than actual wave clear. It's going to be near impossible to shove out these minions from your base in any meaningful way for the next 2 minutes and 26 seconds, especially with Baron buff bearing down these minions upon you.
And SLU's just looking for some flex tape. They are trying to find it here. Shady is hurt. He has to limp away. A kill for a kill, a support for a support. In the back line is Strumpus looking for the angle. Damage being laid out. Chippies in the midst of it all. Bullfrog Bill takes out Strumpus in the back line. Destiny has been called. The trigger has been pulled. A gold card later. Zaga goes down, and Maryville have their sights set on the Nexus.
What a game here from the side of Maryville. This was an exceptionally clean early game, despite everything else kind of going against themselves when you look at their lanes. Like I said, the Fizz was the big one I was looking at. As Strumpus has said, again, he's played this champion all this patch. He's a Fizz main. This is a terrible matchup for the likes of the Twisted Fate, and yet, get back. Able to make this one work in his own right. Top and bottom lane, forcing their own objectives inside of these laning phases, generating their own advantage, and helping out Kind get this Kindred kind of further and further ahead over the course of the game. Very well played from Maryville.
Yeah, honestly, looked just picture perfect to what they could have planned, right? If they were in the draft room and this is said, this is what we got to do. This is everything they said and more from the side of Maryville. And man, I'm curious, what does SLU have to come back in with next game here, Rebel?
As much as I love the Fizz, like if you're gonna play it like that, you really have to aggress for it. Like it's got to be the kind of the pinnacle of your composition. It can't just be like, I'm gonna sit here and absorb for 15 minutes and then suddenly I'll throw an ultimate or two and get like 2 kills in a side lane like we saw in this game. We need it to be like the attacking point. We need jungler and mid lane fighting in mid lane constantly with that ultimate, just keeping the TF down as much as possible, and then forcing into side lane, just using this Fizz ultimate time and time again to shut out some of these advantages that they were generating. Otherwise, this Fizz pick kind of falls to like obscurity, because the best thing you can do is look for a shark onto somebody very important in the team fights, and that happened a couple of times, but it didn't happen a couple other times. And even when it did happen, the fight didn't go perfectly in their favor. So it would be nice to see Strumpus on something at least a little bit more easy to access in terms of like damage, where you don't have to put all this resource into a Fizz.
Well, that being said, ladies and gentlemen, we got another game at least ahead of us here, and we're going to have to see if SLU is going to be able to slug Maryville back and make this into a series here. So, ladies and gentlemen, do not touch that browser, as when we come back, our desk is going to break down everything. So, don't go anywhere.
gentlemen, welcome back to the desk. We said it was the battle for St. Louis. Right now, I'm looking for a couple of Saints because SLU might be in need of a little bit of higher power after that game. A tough one for sure. We do have Destrux and Coach Koso to get back out of here. Koso, let's get into it right away by talking about that draft.
All right, I think both drafts were straightforward, really easy to like telegraph like who wants to do what based on like the TF first pick. You want a strong winning side lane for MU side. You want kind of a volatile matchup, to be promoted in there to fight so that you could play towards that top side and TF could go off of that side lane later on in the mid game. SLU responded with a Fizz counter pick, which is something that maybe MU saw coming but didn't care about because of Strumpus' Master Tier in his tweet. He's been playing a lot of Fizz and Tryndamere. So that should have been a good answer if you're fighting towards mid. But what ended up happening is that 3 minutes, they snowballed through topside with the Jacks going off. So that was definitely bad for the side lane matchups later on. In draft also, we saw that SLU on red side tried to counter the MF Nautilus with the Rakan, which is really weird to me. I saw they hovered the Soraka. Enchanters work well with Trundle, and Ezreal needs someone to help him get the priority into a lane like that. But he ended up starting tier with a losing matchup on the Rakan. So they picked red side again. I really want to see a stronger answer on bot side, especially if they're playing towards top side of the map. Because you need at least like some kind of pressure to draw away from the strong top side that you're playing for. I didn't see that at all from SLU. Both teams knew what they had to do, play towards top side, and MU just did it better.
Yeah, I mean, and that last clip really does show it. When we had the whole Ezreal starting with the tier, just how stomped that lane really was early on. I mean, Shady able to get the early kill 2 minutes, 20 seconds in, and then it felt like it all fell apart from there. There was no real lane that was able to get a really good, strong lead for SLU. As we went over towards the mid game, a lot of this started falling apart more and more on the top side where we had that attempted gank coming out of Zaga that was countered, and it just snowballed into Chippies getting solo kill after solo kill after solo kill. As you can see it right here, even when they would allocate resources to try and stop Chippies, to try and stop this snowball, he would still be able to get a kill at the end of the day. And with all that dedication of resources, MU knew exactly what to do. You got 3 members up there, let's send our team bottom and be able to get a turret. After this kill, SLU weren't able to get a single turret plate. A full tower was picked up by MU on as a response.
And there's a big thing about that too, right? Because I believe because you were talking about it when we were just discussing the draft previously, we were all just sitting down and having a nice little friendly chat, is that this Jax Camille matchup is extremely volatile, right? You can really go either way too, and you find that there's not many laners that can scale as well into the Camille pick besides this Jax. So whichever kind of laner gets that early game rolling for them, that can ultimately decide how this overall matchup plays out, gets priority top side, and who can ultimately rule the side lane. And because that was the Jax or something like you were mentioning, Maryville, because they were firing on all fronts, they had a lot of the win cons just working for them. And Destrux, as you kind of went throughout this entire game, SLU just could never really find a way in.
They did find one way in. It was very short-lived, but the focus on the bottom, where they were just like, let's gank bot 3 times while Chippy's down there. If they swap someone else, we'll take them down instead. It was pretty funny to see that attempt work through and just how MU took the bait repeatedly and fell to those kills. But ultimately, it was no forward momentum. You still had the Drakes picked up on MU's side. You still had the team fight going MU's way. Just really... St. Louis, it was a rough game for them, to say the least. I do expect a little bit more coming into this game, too, out of them.
Kind of agree with you more.
As you can see here, the 20-minute clip, you have the Ezreal with no boots. He's running on welfare. He's a slumdog, no man. Really hard to fight around that when the Ezreal is just that weak. Definitely not an answer. You can't start tier like that into a hard-pushing lane. So definitely rough.
A tough time across the board, like you're saying, because of we do have to see as this game evolves, right? They do have red side yet again, so some really solid picks need to come out, where you can especially support picks like the Fizz if that is to come out again for Strumpus. Please, I really hope so. I think it would be super duper sick, right? Because that's going to get a little bit more exciting. And all that remains to be seen is that if the Ezreal go from slumdog welfare to slumdog millionaire. Pass it off to Akash's yet again, Travesty and Rebel Fox take us into game number 2.
Thank you, boys, for bringing us back in for game number 2, as it is going to be a phenomenal time here. Looking to see how SLU is going to have to answer back to the side of Maryville. Yeah, and I'm also thinking, in the back of the head, they have to think about the fact that they threw out a fastball of their own, right? You talked about it already. Fizz, you got to grab the Camille right at the get-go. You got the powerful Trundle that we got to see was so impactful. And then all of a sudden, they slugged it out of the park from the side of Maryville with a Jats pick that really put in a clinic inside of that last game. So I feel like there's a lot of things SLU was going to have to keep their eyes on. Yeah, and I personally, I personally think with Indy Bendy, his Champion Ocean, right? If you see somebody has a Champion Ocean and they go to Ezreal, every AD carry knows how to play Ezreal.
Oh, yes.
We all know this, but it definitely felt like they picked the Ezreal and SLU just didn't have a plan around them picking the Ezreal. Like the Rakan never got a chance to really get off of its feet and roam around the map because of how aggressive MNRL and Shady were.
It felt like the early game of SLU was so important, despite having the Ezreal on the bottom side, to get Kisum out and about, to get Zaga involved, and especially, again, to get Strumpus really heavily going in the earlier phases, to get the Camille going into the Jax matchup, and yet they stumbled out of the gate in a couple of those positions. And because of that, that's what kind of thwarted this mid-game that could have been really strong from SLU. And hopefully they can kind of patch that up, as they're keeping up pretty much the exact same bans we had seen in the previous game. The Ziggs getting taken off instead of the Varus is something notable, at least, especially if, like, Maryville, if that comes through, did they pick it away? And then, of course, Twisted Fate, that becomes a question of, like, Strumpus definitely can play. I've seen it banned away from him. But in terms of priority versus, like, Rise or what would be, like, LeBlanc or anything of that sort, you have to think that that's another possibility that's going to be on the board. So either Varus, LeBlanc, or Twisted Fate, all two of those champions likely to get through here and be available for both SLU and Maryville.
Yeah, last time they banned away the LeBlanc with their last pick. This time around, though, they're getting rid of the kind jungler himself, Kindred, not saying anything for him. And now Maryville, you get your first pick. What is the priority? Is it still the Twisted Fate?
I think LeBlanc is preference here, only because with Lucian, with Rise, with Aurelia off the board, there's not too much that's still left in the pool of Strumpus specific